Hi everyone, so we have Scott Gould here. Gould.
Gould.
Almost
but
like gold.
You know what? Any way you say it is fine by me.
Scott is an engagement expert.
That's what they call me, yes.
Yeah. So, and you just gave a speech about engagement.
I did.
So maybe you could tell us, how do you actually define engagement? What is engagement? Is it a click on Facebook, like on Facebook, or something more?
Yeah, well, engagement as a word, right, means togetherness. Right? It's when two things come together. Whether that's in military combat, an engagement, people getting engaged to be married, somebody liking you on Facebook is saying, I'm with you. Or whether someone's like really engaged with, let's say, Star Wars, they're really together with it.
Yeah.
But I think what's more important about engagement is not the definition, but the intention. When you want to engage with something, what you're saying is, I want to make the most of this relationship. And I think that's the key thing, right? Is saying, I really want to maximize the value out of this. So that's what's really important. And that's a massively competitive advantage for businesses when your customers want to make the most out of their relationship with you.
Yeah. So what are you engaged with?
What? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
What are you engaged with? Are you like in general life? So people have different things that they are engaged with, right?
Yes.
So, and what is
what do I engage with?
What is important for you? Yeah, what are you engaged with?
It's a personal question.
Yes, I know. It's a personal interview.
I love poetry.
Poetry.
I love poetry. In fact, I quoted some Shakespearean poetry on stage. I love poetry. I love my family. I'm engaged in my family. And also I'm engaged in engagement, right? The concept of engagement, the psychology of it is fascinating to me. And I love thinking about it, writing about it, talking about it, consulting in it. It really is, I get to do what I love, and I'm very, very fortunate in that sense.
Do you think businesses, they pay a lot of attention to this? Do they have, globally, do they have like plans for engaging their customers? And
No, so the stat goes something along the lines of, although 80% of business leaders know that engagement really matters to the bottom line of their company, only 20% are doing something about it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's because engagement still as a subject is not very widely understood, right? It's a part of marketing, or if we're talking about employee engagement, it's a part of HR. But it's not something that people generally create a strategy for. It's just because it's still a young concept, right? It's about 30 years old in business literature, whereas other concepts have been around for far longer. It is, though, I like to say, it is the most important skill that we're never taught, right? So even just the way that you engage with people to make friends, no one ever teaches you how to make friends. Yet it is such an important skill. And the same in businesses. No one actually ever teaches businesses how they make friends with their customers or how they make friends with their employees. They're just taught how you get a sale, how you get them to sign up and join your company and go through an onboarding process. But engagement is far deeper than that. My background is that actually I learned about engagement being a church minister. So I used to be a pastor and pray for people, all that, preaching. And in church, you really do learn about the value of engaging on a psychological level with the religion. And so I think businesses can learn a lot from religion. Not because necessarily religion is right, but because religion is probably the oldest thing that we have around that shows us how humans work.
Yeah.
Right? There is nothing really older than religion as a way of codifying the way that we like to interact with each other.
So would you say that physical engagement is less or more kind of stronger than psychological engagement?
So the highest level of engagement is what we would call affective engagement or affectionate engagement. It's when you have a strong emotional bond with something, and that will then spur you to do things physically, but it means that you're not doing it all the time. So let's take Star Wars, right? Physically, I engage with Star Wars when I'm having a conversation about it, when I'm watching it, when I'm walking around pretending I'm a Jedi.
Yeah.
But I am deeply engaged with it even when I'm not doing those things. Same in a marriage. One is engaged by their spouse or their partner even when they're not with them.
Yes.
Right. Same with a football team. Same with a brand that you absolutely love. But as we kind of go down lower levels of engagement, we find that those engagements are more in the moment. So Facebook fans, they might engage with you in the moment, but they're not engaged outside of that moment, right? And so that there is the important distinction.
So you mentioned actually that people are lacking on this skill or knowledge of engagement. So what would you say what is the best way to actually learn it and to practice it and to get better at it?
The best way to learn it is to read my book.
Yeah, you have a
Best
book.
way to get good at it is to hire me. Sorry, that's terribly self-promotional, but I need to get better at it. I'm terrible at it. I just never normally do it. Literally, you have to take it seriously, right? And so read about it. Yeah. There are lots of engagement books out there. Again, not many of them actually talk about the concept of engagement as a bigger idea than just how you get customers to like you. And it is deeper than that. I mean, for me, engagement really is about making friends. And so it is a deeper discipline. I mean, and Arne Sorensen, who's the CEO of Marriott, recently said we are in an absolute war for who owns the customer. I mean, that is an engagement battle, right? Is when somebody becomes an Apple customer, they cease being a customer of a number of other brands. There is this real exclusive thing going on, right? It's Netflix or Prime. They're fighting each other all the time. So it is vital to learn, and I think that read about it. And the easiest thing is just think in terms of human relationships. If this customer was married to me, what would they expect me to do if I was a person?
Yeah.
And you will very quickly discover a whole bunch of really simple things that you could do.
Do you think that it's becoming actually more and more increasingly harder to engage with people because of the decreasing attention spans for people?
I don't think it's becoming harder. It's always been competitive, right? It's just become different. So now we have very different things grabbing for our attention, but our attention has always been grabbed. And there have always been those brands that don't struggle to get attention just because they're really good at what they do, right? And so it's just morphing and changing, but the psychology of us as people has remained the same. I don't really think it's getting more difficult necessarily.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about the first step was in this engaging process is the scattering of the message, right?
Yeah.
I was listening.
You were there. All right, cool. All right.
So, and would you say that it can backfire if you kind of try too hard for a brand, like for a company? If you bombard people with emails or something, people will start to hate you.
So I mean, so for any viewers, engagement has three processes: scatter, gather, and matter, right? And scatter is the first thing, which is you're doing it now. You're scattering out questions to me, and I'm answering them, right? A business scatters out its marketing communications. And can you overscatter completely? Can you put too many seeds in a field? Yes, because now they begin competing for each other. Think of it being in a bar.
Because the seeds cost money as well.
Well, they also cost money, right? Think of it as a bar. In a bar, someone comes up to you and they're putting out too much. You move away from it. It just feels desperate. It feels intrusive, but also it can be too little. You see somebody, you like them, let's say, but they don't really talk back to you. They don't approach you perhaps. So now that you get nowhere as well. So it's got to be this kind of like happy balance, right? Not too little, not too much. The Goldilocks effect, right? Just the right amount.
How do you know when it's too much? Because I've seen many examples where people just do too many emails, for example, and it's bothering me. But they never ask me if I want more or less.
People who do drop shipping and run these funnels are classic culprits at this. They're emailing you like all the time. Hey, I want you to know about this and know about this and know about this, and they've got very, very low loyalty and retention rates, very high attrition rates, because they just scare people. It's just too much. They're so desperate about making one sale. It literally is like the guy who goes into a bar and goes from woman to woman, putting it all out there and seeing which one will stick around. And he doesn't even seem to care the fact that the women are watching him go around from one to one. He's just so desperate to get his one night stand. He's not thinking bigger. And a lot of businesses, they are thinking one night stand with their customers. They are not thinking, how do I nurture this into a long-term relationship that can have immense value?
Yeah, that's a big problem, I think. What I found was interesting that you also gave a TED Talk, right? About not listening to TED Talks.
I gave a
What was that about?
You really have done your research. I appreciate
Yes.
it. I did a TEDx talk 2 years ago about how I don't watch TED Talks. It was a tongue-in-cheek 5-minute talk. I shouldn't have done it, because now people invite me to do TEDx talks and they find out that I've done a TEDx talk. They say, we can't have you come because you've already done one. And the only one I did, literally, it was a joke. So yeah, that backfired. But my point was, I don't watch TED Talks because they make me feel too inspired. And then I want to go and change what I do to do what, so like the person's talking
Feeling bad about yourself?
Yeah, the person's talking about going and working with inner city kids. And I'm like, screw what I'm doing, let's go and do what they're doing because they're so passionate about it. I guess I'm just easily inspired. I'm like, so TED Talks are like a health hazard for me.
Okay, and lastly, maybe there's some practical tactic you could suggest for the Latvian marketers, business leaders for engaging with their customers and target audience.
Well, hello, again, I think the key thing that you could do if you're watching this is, for me, it's the gathering stage. So scatter out your messages, that's great. But begin to think about how you can create experiential gatherings for your customers to come together, not just come to you, but also come to other customers. Because when they do that, they get to see other people who are customers, and that creates a kind of sense of social identity. And that's very, very powerful for making people want to be a part of something. Victoria Hansen from the New York Times spoke this morning, and she talked about how the New York Times, one of the ways that it retains subscribers is it has subscriber-only events. And me as a subscriber, I go along, I meet other New York Times subscribers, it reinforces that social identity. It increases my advocacy, and it increases how much I'm spending. So that to me is one of the best tactics that you can pull. I mean, Scandiweb have done it with this event, right? Conferences are a great example of it. So find experiential ways to bring your customers together with each other and you. I think that's probably one of the most underused engagement strategies out there.
Awesome. So how do you actually, what do you think about the event? How is it?
This is great. It's a really great conference. I mean, I speak a lot in kind of like Eastern Europe, and this is going to be one of the most well-produced ones, which I think is really important. It's just running to time. It's well organized. I used to run events, so I appreciate that. The content has been good. It's very varied. Some very provocative stuff going on, and it's also fun. And you're meeting a lot of like-minded people who've got different ideas. It's a great vibe. I would recommend, if you are not, well, obviously you're not here because you're watching this, I suppose, but if you've been before or you've not been before, regardless, book your tickets to eCOM360 in 2020. Definitely do that. When you do it, tell them you're doing it because of me, so I get invited back as well, please.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.